In this video we shall discuss some defect reporting recommendations. You'll see a lot of ideas in the following slides, but all of them are coming from this list of synonyms. So be attentive, provide details, and so on, and so on, and so on. The first advice: provide steps to reproduce with even the smallest details, like URLs, exact logins, passwords, and so on and so forth. Never omit any detail. And that's applicable not only to steps to reproduce, but to all other fields. When you are writing a defect report, provide any detail you have. Provide the link to the requirement, the actual and expected result, write down all those details you have. And no surprises here once again about details. Unfortunately, sometimes people rely on some esoteric knowledge, something like everybody knows that it's not necessary to write it down because everybody knows that. Imagine, this point is absolutely obvious for the author of this defect report. But time goes, project team changes, and maybe in a couple of months this idea will not be clear to anybody. So this should be provided here, and this data should also be provided here. Nothing should be omitted, as everybody knows. Even if today everybody knows for real, tomorrow no one will know it. This advice is rather easy to follow. Provide the reference to the requirement that the defect violates. Here we have the good example. Of course, it's impossible for 100% of defects to provide such information. There may be exceptions, but in most cases you should provide the link to the requirement. It serves several purposes. First of all, it's easier to prove that this is a defect, that some requirement is violated. And the second, that requirement may provide some additional details that make the defect report easier to understand and the defect easier to be fixed. And once again, we are speaking about details, about exactness of details. You should provide all the details explicitly. Imagine that for some reason in this particular defect report, these words are somehow omitted. How the developer should try to reproduce the defect? He will authenticate with the application, then log out, re-authenticate. He will not wait for 10 minutes. So there will be no defect, and so the developer may try to decline your defect report. But if the information about 10 minutes is provided, there is a different situation, and now no declining here, just working with the defect report. Of course, most bug tracking systems provide such picture as environment, but if your BTS doesn't, try to write this information somewhere. There is a tradition to write it down in square brackets in the beginning of the summary. Because if you do not provide such information, it will be harder to reproduce the defect, to understand the defect, and to fix it. So, provide the information about the environment the defect was found within. You probably remember from the previous video that it's absolutely inappropriate to be emotional while writing the defect report. So don't be. Even if you see such a disastrous situation like license agreement main page contains 72 typos, it is absolutely not good. But what we just described, the situation, hoping that someone will look at this license agreement and fix all those typos. So we just provide details, not our opinion on the author of that page. When you find several defects, you have to write separate defect reports for each of those defects. Never combine several defects descriptions into one defect report. For instance, see here, that's the defect 1 and that's the defect 2, and they should be in different defect reports. Of course, there may be exceptions. If you absolutely sure that you found only one defect with several indications, you may write one defect report and provide the list of those indications in the description field. But once again, this situation is rather rare and this mistake is rather common. So write separate defect reports for each separate defect. If you have enough technical knowledge, make the root cause analysis of the defect. Try to find the real cause of the defect. Don't just stop with system behavior description or interface behavior description. Use comment section and write your ideas here. Of course, sometimes you may have no special technical background, so that's also okay, but if you can, try to write such comments. They are useful. And if you have even more technical expertise, you may provide a recommendation on how to fix the defect. So try to write some comments not only about the root of the defect, but also the recommendation on how to fix it. Use comment section to write all this information. This is not absolutely necessary because most developers do not need special recommendations. They understand how to fix the defect, but the more difficult defect you find, the more useful such comments are. You should never try to postpone writing down the defect report. Write down immediately once you find the defect and perform all necessary actions like root cause analysis and so on. Because the less time passes, the more details you remember. You do not forget anything. And the sooner the defect report appears, the sooner someone starts working on the defect. Do not waste anybody's time. Write down your report immediately. Analyze the most critical consequences of the defect. Emphasize those critical consequences. This information will both help you with severity and priority fields and may lead you to some useful ideas on additional testing. If you see something bad, always think how severe it is. What's the worst case scenario of such defect? Once you imagine the worst case scenario and you have proofs, write down your defect report with proper severity and priority values. Remember that it's likely that you yourself will be verifying that defect you are now describing. So, like in previous video, remember that idea that we may save about 20 minutes here, but then we shall lose about 90 minutes here. So, let's not lose those 90 minutes with this 20. Once you detect a defect, you remember all those specifics, all those details. By making a good defect report, you are saving the time for the future yourself. Use spell checking for your text, for anything you write, because why not? It's pretty simple, it takes almost no time. And remember about all those ideas. Now, with our defect reports, we should provide details. The more details we provide, the better.